Now, she usually brings us food, but today she's got something much more important, coffee. Let's talk Crema and Baristas with Julie Biuso.
Indeed, yes. Well,
you went to Sydney together this
shot
information
off for
us,
Sydney,
didn't you?
just to learn how to make a decent cup of coffee. But it sounds quite simple, but in fact I learnt so much. For a start, just the importance of choosing the beans, the freshness. We've all heard about freshness, but what does that really mean? Well, Victoria Coffee are Australia's #1 coffee maker. They've been roasting coffee in Sydney for about 40 years, so they actually know quite a lot about it. But their main concern was that they can do everything they want to produce really good coffee, freshly roasted. Once it goes out into the bars or the restaurants, they've got no control of it. Unlike wine, you know, once the wine is made, all that care and that kind of thing, it's a fairly stable kind of thing in the bottle, but not with coffee. So the first thing we really looked at was actually the roasting of the coffee, because the beans, when they're green, they'll last for a couple of years. So it doesn't really matter how long they have them, but once they're roasted, they've got to get them straight out. And I don't know if you're used to seeing fairly oily-looking beans when they've been roasted.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's actually not a very good sign. When the beans are first roasted, they're done in this great big thing like a big tumble dryer, and about 200 degrees to 270 degrees, just like you roast a piece of meat, for about 12 to 18 minutes, depending whether they want a medium or a full roast. When the beans come out, they tumble into this big kind of tray, and they're quite dry. There's no oil in them. The oil is contained in the beans, and it's actually as the beans stale that oil comes out.
Right. So
that's not a good sign.
That's what to look for.
Yeah. So that's when you're buying fresh beans. Now, then of course they grind them, and the most important thing is getting those ground beans into your machine and into your coffee cup as soon as you can. Now, another thing that happens with that oil is that it coats the mechanical parts of the machine. That builds up, and then of course in your grinders, you know, you get a little bit of friction there, and that can impart a burnt flavour to your coffee. Yeah. So that's all these kind of things. So their concern is, well, you know, they've got no control over the coffee beans once they go out, so they started up a college. And that's where I went, of course, to learn about all of this thing.
And what's the difference between a medium roast and a
medium,
full roast?
Yeah, full roast, of course, in timing, it's a little longer in the roaster, but it develops a richer, maybe more caramel flavour, maybe even chocolatey tones. Whereas if you go to the real light roast, you've got just a very, very, very subtle aromas and taste coming through. So most coffees are a blend. You see, when you go and buy your favourite little espresso hit in a bar, you want it to taste the same every time you go there. So their art is really in blending that coffee. And they've got a guy they call a cupper. This is a very interesting process that once the coffee's been roasted and ground, they brew it, and then he kind of sniffs it and tastes it. And we went through that process as well. It's just like tasting wine and smelling wine. And the difference is, I mean, you get some undesirable aromas in there, some little bit of sometimes rubberiness, or if the coffee has been harvested in the wrong way, you might get some little straw tones or some leafy tones. Yeah, not good at all. You want, you know, really lovely kind of fresh
and you could tell
flavours.
There's a novice.
At first, as we went round these little brewed cups, it was hard to pick up any difference. You go around the second time, you get an idea of what you're looking for. Now, the other thing that was really stunning to me was the difference in the beans. There are two main types, the Arabica and the Robusta. Robusta is a cheaper one, which is usually used in instant coffee.
Right.
Now, when I first started drinking coffee in Italy, and in Italy they tend to use Robusta even in the home and even in bars, because it's about a third of the price. It grows at a lower level, it's easier to harvest. Mm-hmm. And it's got twice the caffeine quantity. So I would have these kind of major palpitations and, you know, bad reaction to the amount of caffeine. So Arabica, and you'll find any company that produces 100% Arabica beans will put that on their packet.
Right.
And that's
so
what
that's
to look
a mark
for.
Of quality.
A very good mark.
We will have to leave it there, Julie, but thank you. And you have brought some food in, I'm glad to see.
Yeah,
good
you'll have a
chocolate.
little sniff too. Tell me what you think of that.
Magnificent.
Yeah, good and fresh.
Lovely. Thank you, Julie Biuso.